We're so delighted that we could all be here, even in this crazy Corona period, that we could open up our High Holy Day season with this most beautiful service of Slichot. Our entire clergy is here to share it with you, along with our guest rabbi, Rabbi Richard Agler, who you'll hear more from in a few moments. And we are very honored and delighted to welcome him to Temple Beth Am for our Slichot service. I hope that you had a restful and peaceful Shabbat as we begin now our Havdalah service, saying goodbye to Shabbat, and then beginning our Slichot service together. So I'm going to turn it over to Cantor Nelson as we begin Havdalah.
Thank you. הנה אל ישועתי אבטח ולא אפחד, כי עוזי וזמרת יא אדוני, ויהי לי לישועה, ושופטי מים בששון ממעייני הישועה. לאדוני הישועה, על עמך ברכתך סלה, אדוני צבאות עמנו משגב לנו אלוהי יעקב סלה, אדוני צבאות אשרי אדם בוטח בך, אדוני הושיע, המלך יעננו ויום קוראנו על היהודים הייתה אורה, ליהודים הייתה אורה, ליהודים הייתה אורה, בשמחה וששון ויקר. יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, היי, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה. כן תהיה לנו כוס ישועות עשה, ובשם אדוני אקרא. Lay lay la 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 lay 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 la 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 lay lay la la lay lay la la lay lay la la lay 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 la 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 lay 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 la 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 lay lay ya la lay 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 la la lay lay la la lay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri hagafen, Borei peri hagafen. Yay lay la 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 lay 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 la 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 lay lay, ya la lay 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 la la lay lay la la lay, lay la 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 lay 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 la 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 lay lay, ya la lay 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 la la lay lay la la lay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei minei v'samim, Borei minei v'samim. Yay lay la 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 lay 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 la 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 lay lay, ya la lay 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 la la lay lay la la lay, lay lay la 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 lay 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 la 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 lay lay, ya la lay 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 la la lay lay la la lay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei me'orei ha'esh, Borei me'orei ha'esh. Yay lay la 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 lay 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 la 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 lay lay, ya la lay 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 la la lay lay la la lay, ya lay la 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 lay lay la 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 lay lay, ya la lay 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 la la lay lay la la lay. As we bid farewell to the Sabbath, we welcome in Eliyahu Hanavi, the prophet. We ask that he bring with him the symbols of peace and goodness, kindness, compassion, and empathy that our world so sorely needs. And if you can rise, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hashtibi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimhera v'yamenu, Yavo Eleinu, Im Mashiach ben David, Im Mashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamabdir ben kodesh lechol, ben or lechoshech, ben Yisrael la'amim, ben yom hashvi'i l'sheshet yemei ha'ma'aseh. Baruch atah Adonai, hamabdir ben kodesh lechol. Hamabdir ben kodesh lechol, chatotenu hu yimcho. Zarenu v'chosbenu, yarbech kachol, v'chakochavim balayla. Shavua tov, 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 Shavua tov. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. Shavua tov to everyone.
Shavua Tov, invite you to turn to your virtual neighbor, whoever's in the box next to you, and wish them Shavua Tov as we turn now our program over to Rabbi Aklepi.
Shavua Tov, everybody. Temple Beth Am is pleased to welcome Rabbi Richard Agler, a dear old friend of mine. I shouldn't say old, I meant long-time friend. When I first came down to Florida and I joined CCAR, the Southeastern Association of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, and went on our weekend renewal, our trips away during the week yearly. It was Rabbi Agler, one of the rabbis who welcomed me, and there were really maybe only 2-3 women rabbis in South Florida, and only 2 of us in pulpits. And it was the days when there were a bunch of really sort of a couple of generation older rabbis, and Rabbi Agler was always the most welcoming and sensitive. He didn't tell good old boy rabbi jokes. And to this day, I remember how welcoming he was to the young women rabbis who were just coming in and coming up in the field. So those are my earliest memories of Rabbi Agler. Plus, he always liked to go sailing, which he still does. Those of you who know Rabbi Agler from South Florida will know that he's Rabbi Emeritus of Temple B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, and he began that temple. He's the founding rabbi of that beautiful, vibrant congregation. And since then, he was the rabbi in residence, scholar in residence of the Keys Jewish Community Center in Tavernier. So he went from Boca down south because he really loves the water. But if you ask him where he is now, he is nowhere near the water because he is in the desert as he and his wife make their way from the East Coast to the West Coast to start a new chapter in their lives in San Diego. So a new beginning for Rabbi Agler. And this new beginning, of course, is prompted somewhat by the development of his book, the the tragedy test. And the tragedy test is the story of his recovery to comfort and the support that he was able to develop for himself and for others following the tragic loss of his daughter. And that story of recovery from loss and all that he's learned and was able to share with others is found in this book and is part of the hopeful story that he will share with us tonight as we begin this new year, the new year to begin again for ourselves, to redevelop who we are. And this evening of Slichot, a time for forgiveness, a time for renewal. And so I thank Rabbi Agler for being here, and we welcome his comments and look forward to sharing all the insights that you have for us tonight. Rich, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so very much, Jamie. I deeply appreciate it. I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. Somebody give me a signal if you can't. I've got a little bit of background noise. If it's okay, it's okay. Fantastic, good. And thank you, Lishana Tova, to everybody. Thank you for this wonderful invitation to speak as we enter this most holy season. It's a great honor, and it's my privilege to be with you. I want to say quickly, Rabbi Barris, Rabbi Greengrass, Rabbi Kleppe, Cantor Nelson, Cantorial Soloist Bass, this wonderful clergy team that you have together. Some of you I've known for many, many years, others, not so much, but I know Temple Beth Am is very, very fortunate to have each and every one of you, along with Andrea. Thank you for all of your assistance in putting ourselves together this time, and Brian for your direction today. Nice to meet you as well. I would be remiss if I did not say a few words on behalf of your founding rabbi and your late Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Herbert Baumgart. As you heard, I was a founding rabbi of the congregation and now a Rabbi Emeritus. And, when I was kind of going through that process of being the rabbi of a congregation I had founded that had suddenly gotten very large, lots of times rabbis have questions and you really need to have somebody who you can ask. It's really one of the great things you can have in the rabbinate. And when I reached out to Rabbi Baumgart, we didn't really know each other well. But I figured, well, maybe he went through some things like I did, He founded a congregation, it became large. Well, sure enough, he was an incredible mentor to me. I would pick myself up out of Boca Raton on my days off, drive the hour and a half, whatever it was, to Beth Am, and he would be extremely generous with his time. We met many, many times over the years, always his insight, his caring, his generosity of his time, and his wisdom was priceless. So I know he leaves a wonderful legacy there for everyone at Temple Beth Am. And I just would have been remiss had I not mentioned that. Okay, so we're going to talk about, it's the high holidays now, right? And during the high holy days, we say that we are standing before God. Many synagogues, I don't know if this is so over the ark, have an inscription. Dalifne mi ata omed. I don't know if you have that at Beth Am or not. Over the ark, you do. Fantastic. And it says, know before whom you stand. But who exactly is that? That's who we're going to, and that's what we're going to speak about a little bit this evening. Obviously, it means we know we stand before God, but let's take it a little bit deeper than that, if we can. So let's begin now. In Judaism, we sometimes say that we have our own Trinity, right? It's not official like the Christian Trinity, but it is no less real. Our Trinity is basically God, Torah, and Israel. And when people become rabbis, it's typically for one of those three reasons. They wanted to serve God more. They wanted to learn Torah more. They were dedicated more to the people Israel, the state of Israel, whatever it may be. For me, it was God. That's why I became a rabbi. I had an experience as a young man searching for something, I wasn't sure what, and I describe it a little bit in the book, but I felt that I had experienced God's presence as a young man, and it was a very powerful experience. Maybe you could call it a mystical experience. It was a very intense experience, and I knew from the moment that it was going to change my life, and it did, and so I became a rabbi. Okay, I followed my path, mostly in the congregational rabbinate, where the emphasis for most people is not so much on God, it's more on Torah and Israel. But God is there too, of course. God comes up all the time, ritually, in prayers, on special occasions. especially during the high holidays. People often question God, as I think everybody knows that's allowed in Judaism. Most often the questions come up when things go wrong. Where is God in all of this, Rabbi? I know all of your rabbis have had to answer that question. Probably this one too. How can you believe in God when all these terrible things happen? And again, at this time of year, exactly which God am I standing before? Really now or at any other time? So these are vital questions when we want to think about them. And like all young rabbis, really clergy of every faith, I learned how to respond to them. Sometimes it was easy. For example, how can you believe, how can you believe in God after the Holocaust? Well, like I said, that's easy theologically because God didn't do it, people did. People have free will, we can commit evil, and we do, if and when we are not stopped. It's really no difference. The Shoah is no different than Cain and Abel, just that was on a terribly larger scale. Other times it was not so easy. People ask questions like, why did tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, wildfires, to say nothing of war, destroy good people too? That's not supposed to happen, is it, Rabbi? No, it's not. But there are things we don't understand, and it's not wrong to say so. And the hardest one of all, because it's the one that more people want an answer to than any other, why did my loved one die? Most often this comes during the time of grief. My response to that typically was, we don't know, but we have other and more pressing things to take care of right now. We have a funeral to get through. We have a family we have to keep together. There will be time for that later. And the funeral and the shiva usually helped. Typically, the family would get through its crisis, maybe not satisfied with whatever answers they got, but probably thinking there might not have been many better ones around. Spiritually, they might be walking wounded, but at least they were walking. And the rabbi then, as all my colleagues know, is typically on to the next family, the next crisis, the next whatever it might be. Every now and then people would really want to know. And I would typically say that it was okay to admit that there were things we did not know, could not know, and that we might never know. And in spite of that, it was still a good thing to live with faith. Because even if it couldn't answer everything, faith can answer a lot of things really well. And we shouldn't hold it against faith too much for not having every answer when it has so many good ones. And I stand by that today. Then, as you've heard, something happened to us. On January 26, 2012, our 26-year-old daughter, Talia, an amazing, bright, loving, and vibrant young woman who lived in Washington, D.C., was struck and killed by a motor vehicle while jogging. I'm going to share my screen here. This is Talia. She worked in international development for a large corporation. She went out for work after work for a run, and as the doctors told us, never knew what hit her. She was, and this remains emotional for me, you'll have to forgive me for that. I say with all possible objectivity, she was an extraordinary human being, beautiful, loving, and giving. When she took her semester abroad in college, she did it in Nairobi, Kenya. She connected there with a woman, Edith Moroho, and a fledgling program that educated and trained people from the slums to become household domestic workers. That may not sound like much, but you may or may not know, but African big city slums make ours look like Park Avenue. They have no electricity, running water, indoor plumbing, or much else. But Tally realized that she could help these people climb out of destitution and hopelessness, up the socioeconomic ladder, and get a chance for a decent life. She threw herself into it, and it ultimately led to her career. After she died, Edith and her board, who had just opened a home for trafficked and abused girls, named it in her memory. It's the Talia Agler Girls Shelter, which functions to this day. You'll see more about it in a little while. Our family established what we call the Tally Fund to support it, and also the cause of organ donation. Tally was an organ donor since her first driver's license, and her heart, lung, kidneys, pancreas, and liver saved the lives of 5 people. I trust everybody on this call is an organ donor. If you're not, go to organdonor.gov, make that your Jewish New Year's resolution. And a portion of the proceeds of every book, which Jamie was nice enough to hold up, go to the Tally Fund. 2 memorial services were held for her, one in Washington, where she lived, worked, and graduated college, the other in South Florida, where she grew up. Over 1,500 people attended the 2 of them. She led a life that left us with a lot to be grateful for. But needless to say, we were devastated. I tried to stop share there. Do you see me again? Am I good? Good. Okay. Thank you. This was not my first funeral for a young person, but I had no idea what I was going to say. People were asking those impossible questions. How could this happen to someone so young, to such a good person, even to you, Rabbi? I felt that to ignore those questions was not an option. So at the funerals and the memorials, I talked about how faith helped shape the extraordinary person that Tally became, which it did. And given that, how could we turn our backs on it? A lot of people told me that this moved them significantly. My local Orthodox rabbi posted it on his blog. It wasn't a bad answer, but it was the best I could do at the moment. But it didn't go as far as I needed it to, or as far as it needed to. It may have been a good reason to have faith while we live, but it didn't explain how she could have died, especially in a world ostensibly created and overseen by a just and powerful God. That God we hear so much about, especially during the High Holy Days. So I wasn't satisfied, and there was a hole in my mind and my soul and my spirit, and I had to deal with it. So after the mourning period, I sat down to write, not knowing where it would take me. I don't know if your rabbis feel the same way, but one of the things I loved about being a rabbi was that when something upset me, I could write about it and then dump it into the laps of the congregation. I had been doing that for years. Having retired from the full-time congregational rabbinate 6 months earlier, I had time. So I sat in front of the computer and I poured everything into it with no preconceived notion of where it was going to lead. I just knew I had to write. I went down every possible alley, every line of inquiry, tracked down every response to tragedy I knew or I could find. And after about 80,000 words, which is about 350 pages, I stopped. Turned out that I believed that there was a book there. There was a lot of good content, but it was raw and unorganized, so I went back and I worked on making it presentable. I remembered that there were words attributed to Mark Twain, who, as the story goes, once wrote a friend, "I'm sending you a long letter because I don't have time to write a short one." I had time now to write something shorter. So after about 5 years after first sitting down, I had a book of about 40,000 words, about half that size, about 180 pages, which was published in October of 2018. And I've called it The Tragedy Test, Making Sense of Life-Changing Loss. And since Rabbi Klepi was good enough to hold it up, I'll do it again. I don't know if you can see it. It doesn't show on this background, not to worry. But I call it The Tragedy Test because tragedy tests us as nothing else does. It tests us personally, emotionally, it tests our faith, and it tests our understanding of the world and whatever God may be in it. I don't claim to have aced this test, but I believe I've managed to pass it, and writing the book helped me do it. I too would have been much more walking wounded than I am now. In the subtitle, Making Sense of Life-Changing Loss, that's what we want, isn't it? For things to make sense, especially the important ones, the really important ones that sometimes don't seem to make any sense at all. As I said, I wrote the book for myself. But something I've learned is that that which is most personal is also the most universal. So I believe that it can help anyone who has, will, or knows someone who has or will experience life-changing loss, which sooner or later is pretty much every one of us. I'll take a breath. That's been the introduction. Don't worry, it's the longest part. And I'll take a breath. Are you still with me all? I hope so. Thank you. All right, so let's go to part one. Second. Thank you. Okay. Because so many people don't understand how and why things like this happen, we often say the wrong things when they do. We don't mean to, but they come out that way because we don't know what we should say, and we may not have thought through the ramifications of what we are saying. For example, it was meant to be. We may mean, I know all of us have said that, I've heard that, and maybe some of us have said it. We may mean it to be comforting, but the person who is hearing it may be thinking, meant to be, really? By whom? And for what purpose? And what makes you so sure of that? So sure that you can tell me, the grieving individual here. Or, everything happens for a reason. Again, really, have you thought that through? What reason could possibly justify the loss of this life? And who under this scenario is orchestrating? Also, I'm sure we've heard this one too. She was too good for this world. Her work here was done. She's with God in heaven. I suppose it's possible. And to be honest, I've said things like that myself, mostly when I knew it would be comforting at certain times to certain people. But we don't really know if that's true, do we? It may be, but it may not. And if it isn't, we need to find another way to get us through the tragedy test. And the interesting thing about these responses and many others like them is that they can each be found in Jewish, Christian, Islamic, and Eastern religious traditions. Each of those belies a particular view of God. So now part two, let's go back to God. It was some sense of God that led me to become a rabbi. So really now, where is God in all of this? Most of us were taught that God knows all, sees all, and can do all. And again, this is kind of the official word, not only in Judaism, but in Christianity and Islam as well. Big breath, but if this is really true, it means that God either took or let my daughter be taken for a reason that may be unfathomable, but a reason nonetheless. And this is actually what the book of Job suggests. But I have to tell you, as far as I'm concerned, no reason is good enough to let an almighty God of justice, love, and mercy act in this way. If no capital crime had been committed, how could a death sentence be imposed? We wouldn't accept that from an earthly court, much less a heavenly one. And don't most of us sense, believe, and understand this as well? I believe that this is why so many of us describe ourselves maybe as proudly Jewish, but maybe not so religious. So I, too, who consider myself religious, rethought my ideas about God. And maybe what I'll outline for you now can be helpful to you during the upcoming holidays. I ultimately came, and it's in greater length in the book, came to an understanding I refer to, that God is the God of law and spirit, the God of law and spirit. In brief, God is law, as in the laws of the universe. Those laws are immutable and eternal and cannot be broken. We either live by them or we do not live at all. It's the law that's enabling us to communicate with one another right now. It's not miracle, it's not magic, it's technology, which electronics I don't understand, but I know that it's the law. And this is not new. Benedict Spinoza in the 17th century, Albert Einstein in the 20th, among others, essentially saw God in this same way, and there's more about it in the book. But God is not only law, God is also spirit. Spirit of love, kindness, and decency, which is made manifest when we, for example, treat others as we wish to be treated, work to create a more just society, and treat the powerless with the same respect we show the powerful, to name just a few. So my God is no longer the God who intervenes in history, who favors one people over another, or protects us or does our bidding just because we are good people and ask nicely. And in fact, we have so many texts and traditions that do say God acts in that way. And it may be best to see them becomes a mouthful as narrative expressions of the ancient religious imagination. I'll repeat it. All those traditional which the Machzor is filled with, by the way, are narrative expressions of the ancient religious imagination. So when you're sitting in shul or in virtual shul this year, and you're reading from the Machzor, and you come across a prayer and you say, you know, gee, that doesn't sound like a God who's very real, who works for me, that I necessarily believe in. May I suggest you look at them as narrative expressions, or maybe not, maybe poetic expressions of the ancient religious imagination. I know that from time to time it may see that God does act the way that God is portrayed in our ancient traditions. But from time to time, does not a law of the universe make. And with this as a foundation, this God of law and spirit, I have refashioned for myself a living faith with fewer mysteries, contradictions, and absurdities. And if you want to take this up when we have, I think, a few minutes for a discussion, of course, I'll be happy to do that with you. Part 3 is acceptance. If we want to heal from trauma, if we want even some measure of peace, if we expect to pass the tragedy test, we need to muster whatever strength we can from whatever source and somehow come to accept on every level our loss. And I actually drew up a 6-step program, I call it, to help with this. We know about 12-step programs. Here are 6 of them. 1, I will accept what is. 2, I will be grateful for what was. 3, I will honor in thought and action the memories that endure. 4, I will avoid self-pity. 5, I will find a way to forgive them and us for whatever happened. Very good for the high holidays, by the way. And 6, I will seek love and support from family, friends, and faith. I understand, obviously, this is way more easily said than done. As with all such programs, those steps need to be worked. But we owe it to ourselves to try. And understanding how God does and doesn't work, does and does not work, can be a big part of that. We should also understand that acceptance does not necessarily mean closure. People sometimes confuse the two. Let's be clear. There are some things that cannot reasonably be expected to close. And we can also accept that in the wake of tragedy and life-changing loss, that sadness is normal, but happiness remains possible. The tragedy test, as you hear now, is about thinking of familiar but painful situations in hopefully less painful ways. It's about finding beliefs that really work for us, that give us platforms on which to stand when our old ones have been knocked out from under us. I'm going to quote Carl Jung, whose words appear as an epigraph at the beginning of the tragedy test, the book. Quote, "We cannot live in the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be of little use at evening. And what in the morning was true at evening will have become a lie." Acceptance is also about legacy, and all of us leave one, and Talia certainly did. As I've mentioned, the Talia Agler Girls Shelter, organ donation, and just, well, Talia, the light of her life. And I'm going to show you 5 minutes worth of video here, which I hope you'll find what they should be.
This is the sound of freedom for women and girls previously silenced by situations that strip their humanity. This is Talia Agler Girls Center, a rescue shelter that provides refuge to women and girls who are victims of sexual abuse, trafficking, forced labor, and other abuses. Today is a special day here, as the women and girls are celebrating a Passover feast, a special feast to mark the liberation and beginning of a new life.
Where did they go? They got on an airplane and they went to Israel. Yeah, and that's where they went. And you see this, you see a picture of the airplane, and it wasn't just a regular airplane like you go to the airport. This was a very secret airplane.
Rabbi Richard Agler is here to lead the ceremony. Together with his wife Mindy, the couple is here with a clear message to the girls. That even though the past has been marked by suffering after being trafficked, abused, or exploited, it should not hinder them from breaking free.
Asanteni sana. Mungu awabariki. May God give you self and free, huh? Kabisa free. Two circles. Three circles. 1, 2, 3, and we cover our eyes. And he's going to count for us. Cover our eyes. Delight. Yeah. Have a drink.
La vie, Uzima.
Let's go. What is your name? Let's go. Who's next?
And as they symbolically release themselves from bondage, the sense of freedom finally becomes a reality. It's been a long journey for the Talia Agler girls, as it has been for Richard and Mindy, who tragically lost their beloved daughter Talia in 2012, and whose this center is named after. But through this shelter, the daughter's dream of transforming the lives of others and healing the world now lives.
With the training in the classroom, she even came up with a small curriculum to teach the women reproductive health so they can understand their bodies and know how to deal with their bodies as young women. Yeah, also had a mission and Kali was so instrumental.
So here we held a Passover Seder. This is the final day of Passover. And the theme of liberation from bondage and freedom from slavery, which are the universal themes of Passover, apply very closely here to the girls of the shelter. They too have been escaped from slavery. So we celebrated freedom here today in according with the traditional practices, some of the traditional practices of the Passover holiday. And it was, as you saw, a great celebration. A lot of spirit, a lot of understanding, a lot of joy at being free, celebrating our freedom.
Tally was all about making the world a better place. If she saw something wrong going on, she would stand up for that and fight for it no matter what it was. She would be so fulfilled by the joyous atmosphere that's here and the way the girls take care of each other and the kindness they have for each other. Every time I come, I'm struck by that.
Thank you all for letting me share that. Am I back? See me okay? Yeah, okay, thank you. So, yeah, every one of us leaves our own legacy. And whatever your loved ones might be, when we build on it, they live on. And when we do that, it can help us better, do better with passing the tragedy test. I want to finish with a teaching on the 23rd Psalm, which is the most famous of the Psalms, and it's familiar to all of us, I know. We often hear this recited publicly, performed particularly at memorial services. Individuals seeking strength and solace contemplate these words privately. They've been a source of comfort to countless faithful since they were first composed more than 2,000 years ago. And after Tally died, I came to understand just one of the words in a different way, and that changed my understanding of the psalm as a whole. And I'll share that teaching with you now. And should you should you choose to share it with anyone else in the future, I respectfully request you do it in Talia's name, as she is the inspiration for it. So let me just review the Psalm 23 with you. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, restoring my soul. God leads me in paths of righteousness for the sake of his name. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of God forever. So we all know that. And the first word of the last verse is almost universally rendered in English as surely, right? Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. But the actual original Hebrew word is ach, aleph chaf sofit, aleph final chaf, ach. And that word probably does not mean surely. According to the rabbis, ach is a particle of speech that indicates limitation or diminution. And if we employ that definition, we can read the beginning of the verse as, instead of surely goodness and mercy, but rather a lesser sense, a lesser amount, a lesser quantity of goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. If we have in fact walked through the valley of the shadow of death, we know full well the diminished sense of God's goodness and mercy that now accompanies us. Extending this understanding, we can continue the verse and read the conclusion as, nevertheless, I will dwell in the house of God forever. Having been under the cast of death's shadow, we are not the same people we were before. There is no sense in pretending that we are. Nevertheless, walking along the paths that lead to righteousness remain the best paths upon which to walk. I hope this helps us enter the high holy days with greater and deeper and perhaps additional understanding. I thank you so much for listening. I've got time for questions if you do. Shalom and Shana Tova.
That was magnificent. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Agler. Maybe we will ask anybody to be in touch with you personally if they would like to continue the dialogue as we go on with our Slicha program. I remember not long ago you presented before the board of Miami rabbis at the Federation, and a rabbi there who I respect very much told me that your book is a must read and that we must bring you to Temple Beth Am. And at that point, I knew that slichot, as we try to return and as we struggle with our own theologies at this time more than ever, that you would be the perfect speaker for us at this time. We cannot thank you enough for sharing your soul with us. Clearly, you are wearing your soul on your sleeve. And I'm certain that everyone here is truly touched and inspired, not only by you, but of the memory, and your wife, but the memory of Tali. And you've made clear that her presence is still in this world and will likely be forever. So thank you so very much for a fabulous and very heartfelt and moving presentation. And I hope that you'll come back to Beth Am again and continue the conversation with us. Although I understand it's a little bit more of a schlep from San Diego than it is from Boca. But maybe you'll find yourself in Florida again at some point, and or on Zoom, and we'll be able to continue the conversation. I'll ask anyone who would like. I'm certain you could chat with Rabbi Agler privately on Zoom and find a way to get in touch with him and continue the conversation, because I'm sure there are many questions. I have some of my own, but we do have to move on with our Slichot service. Again, thank you so very much. We're going to now remove.
Rabbi, I hate to interrupt the senior rabbi of all people, but just the easiest way to get a hold of me is rabbiagler@gmail or rabbiagler.net, tragedytest.com, tallyfund.org, any of those that are easy. And I always love being in contact with people. Thank you so very, very much. And Shana Tova to one and all.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Agler. Be safe, and hopefully we'll be able to be in touch again soon. And I would echo my colleague who said that the tragedy test is a must read, and that everybody should reach out and try to get a copy of that book. Amazon I'm sure you could. Is it
actually the best way is at tragedytest.com, which is actually my website. You can get it. You can order it anywhere. The benefit of ordering it from tragedytest.com is that a portion of the proceeds go to the Tally Fund, and the publishing business being what it is, when you order from one of the other online retailers, there's really no proceeds to speak of. So if you care to order it from tragedytest.com, it'll be my privilege to send it to you as quickly as I possibly can. And it'll be personally signed and autographed and all the rest. And you'll be making a contribution to the Tally Fund as well. So that's the best way, but any way is good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Now going to turn it over once again to Rabbi Aklepi as we change our Torah covers from our yearly round the year colored Torah cover to our special white Torah cover for the High Holy Days. Rabbi Aklepi. The music and poetry of the Slichot services are designed to evoke the deepest longing of the Jew for forgiveness, for his or her shortcomings during the past year. They call up from the inner recesses of our memories all those sins of omission and commission, the guilt for which we all must share, all of those transgressions against our fellow human beings and God, in which we have all participated. The music evokes the memory of the distant past, as well as the failures of yesterday. These prayers speak to us as voices of the martyrs of our people. They constitute, in the deepest way, a plea for the future, a future of justice and peace for all humankind.
La 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 la. 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 La 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 la.
The head of the year. The moon is dark tonight, a new moon for a new year. It is hollow and hungers to be full. It is the black zero of beginning. Now you must void yourself of injuries, insults, incursions. Go with empty hands to those you have hurt and make amends. It is not too late. It is early and about to grow. Now is the time to do what you know you must and have feared to begin. Your face is dark too, as you turn inward to face yourself, the hidden twin of all you must grow to be. Forgive the dead year. Forgive yourself. What will be wants to push through your fingers. The light you seek hides in your belly. The light you crave longs to stream from your eyes. You are the moon that will wax in new goodness.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחייך בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשו בריחו לילה מן כל בחטא ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן ביעלמה ויאמרו
There is a halakha that if someone confesses to a transgression on their own, then they don't receive the punishment for their transgression. They must make restitution for the damage caused. However, if someone confesses under pressure, for example, they know that someone saw them and they're going to go tell on them, there's a debate in the Talmud between Rav and Shmuel whether that confession is considered voluntary or not. Rav rules the confession is voluntary and the person is not punished. But Shmuel rules the confession was not voluntary and the person receives the full punishment of his actions. In this prayer, B'motzei Shabbat, when we begin Slichot, we say this, B'motzei Minucha, as the day of rest departs, Ki damnucha techila, we begin to approach you. So an alternative reading of this is, we approach you first. We are coming forward on our own so that we won't receive punishment for our transgressions. I think about this with my kids whenever I catch them in something. I say, just tell me and you won't get in as much trouble. So Eilat will now share with us this beautiful prayer.
B'motzei menucha, ki damnucha tchila, ha'toznecha mimarom, Yosef tehila, לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה, לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה. את ימין עוז אורה לעשות חיל, בצדק נעקד ונשחט, תמורו עיל. גנן נגיזו, בזעקם בעוד ליל, לשמוע לי אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
Shabbat has ended. Still we stand before you, O God of praises. Hearken from on high. O hear our song and prayer. As you reached out for the sake of Father Isaac, beloved son who gave himself to you, cover his children who cry to you this night with your protecting shield. O hear our song and our prayer. Draw near and turn all who turn to you. Embrace all who seek you with a whole heart. From heaven's heights, turn to us. O hear our song and our prayer. God, with fear and trembling, we stand before you, humbly beseeching. Blot out our transgressions, as in your presence we shake like a leaf in the wind. O hear our song and our prayer. Just creator of your world's every creature, keeper and sustainer of all, sustain us now with love that you have shown from the first. O hear our song and our prayer. Many are the sins of your people, too many to count. Nevertheless, we plead for mercy, exalted one, on all who stand before you. O hear our song and our prayer. Pity our suffering, overlook our sins, remember our need when you hear our plea. God of hosts of heaven, spare us, gracious God, and cleanse all who cry out to you. O hear our song and our prayer. This night, may our offering be acceptable, our vows received with favor as the sacrifice of old. Wondrous God, maker of miracles, make us to see the miracle of forgiveness. O hear our song and our prayer. for meditation. The old year has died and the new year is being born. In this pause before the account is made of the past and my life is judged for what it is, I ask for honesty, vision, and courage. Honesty to see myself as I am, vision to see myself as I should be, and the courage to change and realize myself. Many obstacles block my path of return. My lack of trust, my anxieties and fears, and old habits of selfishness and greed. They divide me from my true nature and deny me the contentment and peace you offer. Your hand is open to every living being. At the smallest sign, you come to meet us, for you are generous to forgive. On this day of repentance and return, stretch out your hand to me so that I may grasp it and walk with you along the paths of love and duty into the harmony and peace that are waiting for me.
Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem. Chadesh yameinu, chadesh yameinu, chadesh yameinu kekedem.
Hineni shilacheni. Send me, God, as your messenger to all hearts who lack a home. Hineni shilacheni. Send me, God, as your messenger to all flocks that have no shepherd. Hineni shilacheni. Send me, God, as your messenger to all youth who have never been blessed. Hineni shilacheni. Send me, God, as your messenger to the hungry who have not been fed. Hineni shilacheni. Send me, God, as your messenger to those whose faces are bowed in dust, with none to lift them up. Hineni shilacheni. Send me, God, as your messenger to those in grief, whose tears have not dried. Hineni shilacheni. Send me, God, as your messenger to those imprisoned, whose bars have not been pried open. Let me, Adonai, burn with love of your Torah, that others' hearts may be kindled with the performance of mitzvot.
Shomer, Shomer, Yisrael. Shomer, Shomer, Yisrael. Shemor, Sherit, Yisrael. Shemor, Sherit, Yisrael. V'al Yovad, V'al Yovad, V'al Yovad, Yisrael, ha'omrim Shema Yisrael. Shomer, Shomer, Yisrael. Shomer, Shomer, Yisrael. Shemor, Sherit, Yisrael. Shemor, Sherit, Yisrael. V'al Yovad, V'al Yovad, V'al Yovad, Yisrael, ha'omrim Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael.
To be a Jew means always to run to God, even when you want to flee. Means you're ready right now to hear, even if you're a skeptic, the blare of Messiah's horn. To be a Jew means you never escape from God, however much you may want to. Means you cannot stop your prayer even when the prayers are done, even when the evens have been said.
כי אנו עמך ואתה מלכנו, אנו בניך ואתה אבינו, אנו נחלתך ואתה גורלנו, אנו צונך ואתה רוענו, אנו כרמך ואתה נוטרנו, אנו רעייתך ואתה דודנו. We are your people, you are our ruler. We are your children, you are our parent. We are your possession, you are our portion. We are your flock, and you are our shepherd. We are your vineyard, you are our keeper. We are your beloved, and you are our friend.
What message have you for young people? Asked Carl Stern of NBC in concluding a television interview with Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel shortly before his death. Rabbi Heschel replied, "Let them remember that there is a meaning beyond absurdity. Let them be sure that every deed counts, that every word has power, and that we all can do our share to redeem the world in spite of all the absurdities and all frustrations and all disappointments. And above all, let them remember to build a life as if it were a work of art." El Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim. Sovereign God, whose throne is mercy, you guide the world with steadfast love, forgiving the transgressions of your people. You pardon all who sin, are generous with all who live, treating them with compassion. You have taught us, O God, your compassion and your love. This day, remember your covenant, revealed from old to Moses, the humble one. As it is written, the Eternal One descended in a cloud and stood with him there and revealed the divine nature. God passed before Moses and said,
Adonai, Adonai, Erachum Echanun Adonai, 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 Erachum Echanun Adonai, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed Ve'emet Adonai, Noseh Chesed La'afim, Noseh Aval Nafesha, V'chata V'nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, Erachum Echanun Adonai, 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 Erachum Echanun Adonai, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed Ve'emet Adonai, Noseh Chesed La'afim, Noseh Aval Nafesha, V'chata V'nakeh. Adonai, Adonai,
Our God and God of all generations, help us to overcome the impulse to do evil. You've created us able to do your will, but in our nature there is a wayward spirit that hinders us and keeps us from doing what we should. Eternal God, help us to subdue it so that we may, with a whole heart, make your will known. So this is a night of reflection. We realize now we are only a few days away from Rosh Hashanah, where we'll stand in judgment before God. So I invite you now to take a few moments to go inside and begin to do the internal examination of what you need to be working on before we stand before God on Friday. And we ask God to hear our voice. We ask God to hear our voice at this time of year.
Shema Koleinu Adonai Eloheinu Chus v'rachem aleinu Shema Koleinu Adonai Eloheinu Chus v'rachem aleinu וקבל ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו כי אל שומע תפילות ותחנונים אתה שמע קולנו אדוני אלוהינו חוס ורחם עלינו שמע קולנו אדוני אלוהינו חוס ורחם עלינו יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 la 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 la
You forgive. We pray to you, God, today, not just to forgive us, because you have told us that you can forgive only those things which we have committed against you. Can you forgive what we do to others? Can you forgive what we do to our sons and daughters? Can you forgive what we do to our future? Can you forgive what we do to ourselves? We pray to you this day to unsettle us, to make us genuine, to make us serious, to make us concerned, to make us responsible and responsive, to make us change so that others will be able to forget, so that our children will be able to forgive, so that we will be able to forgive ourselves, so that we will be able to feel the wonderful sense of at-one-ment.
Eloheinu, Elohe Avotenu, Tavo lefanecha tefilatenu, v'yin tiralom v'tchinatenu, shein anachnu azifonim ukesheoref lomar lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu Elohe Avotenu Tzadikim anachnu velo chatanu aval anachnu chatanu Avinu Parshanu. Yai la lai lai lai.
Our God, God of our mothers and fathers, grant that our prayers may reach you. Do not be deaf to our pleas, for we are not so arrogant and stiff-necked as to say before you, our God and God of all ages, we are perfect and have not sinned. Rather do we confess, we have gone astray, we have sinned, we have transgressed. If you are able, you may rise.
Yai la lai lai lai, yai la la lai lai lai, yai la la lai lai lai, yai la lai lai lai, ai la la lai lai lai, ai la la lai lai lai, Ashamanu, Bagadanu,
God knew,
Gazalnu, Dibanu Dofi, Yai la lai rai rai, yai da da rai rai rai, yai da da rai rai rai, Hevinu,
Vehirshanu,
Zadnu,
Zadnu,
Hamasnu,
Hamasnu,
Tafanu Sheker,
Shaker,
Yai da rai rai rai, yai da da rai rai rai, yai da da rai rai rai, Yatsnu Ra,
Yatsnu Ra,
Kizavnu,
Izavnu,
Lotsnu,
Latnu,
Maradnu,
Maradnu,
Diatsnu,
Niatnu,
Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Avinu,
Avinu,
Pashanu,
Ashanu,
Erarnu,
Ararnu,
Kishinu Oref,
Ishinu Oref,
Yai-da-dai-dai-dai, Yai-da-da-dai-dai-dai, Yai-da-da-dai-dai-dai, Rashanu,
Ashanu,
Shichatnu,
Jichatnu,
Tiovnu,
Yavnu,
Tainu,
Tainu,
Titanu,
Titanu,
Yai-da-dai-dai-dai, Yai-da-da-dai-dai-dai, Yai-da-da-dai-dai-dai.
Now may it be your will, Adonai, our God of all the generations, to pardon all our sins, to forgive all our wrongdoings, and to blot out all our transgressions. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, ba'ones uvratzon.
The sin we've committed against you under duress or by choice.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, bezadon, b'vishgaga.
The sin we've committed against you consciously or unconsciously.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, bagalui uvasater.
The sin we have committed against you openly or secretly.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, besinat chinam.
The sin we have committed against you by hating without cause.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, b'masa uvmatan.
The sin we have committed against you by dishonesty in business.
Va'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, b'honaat rea.
And the sin we have committed against you by hurting others in any way.
For all these, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. We have sinned against life by failing to work for peace.
We have sinned against life by keeping silent in the face of injustice.
We have sinned against life by ignoring those who suffer in distant lands.
We have sinned against life by forgetting the poor in our own midst.
We have failed to respect those made in the image of God.
We have withheld our love from those who depend on us.
We have engaged in gossip and in repeated slander.
We have distorted the truth for our own advantage.
We have conformed to fashion and not to conscience.
We have indulged in despair and trafficked with cynics.
We have given meager support to our houses of study.
We have neglected our heritage of learning.
We have sinned against ourselves and paid scant heed to the life of the Spirit.
We have sinned against ourselves and have not risen to fulfill the best that is in us.
For all these, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. voice do we hear beckoning us to change? Is the shofar blast the sound of our own soul, the voice of our heart that we have sought to silence for so many years? Or is it the voice of angels whom God has sent to remind us that we already know what we have to do? Many teachers have suggested meanings for each sounding of the shofar. The Baal Shem Tov believed that the blasts represent our tears, expressing the deep emotion we feel each time we hear the shofar's call. One thing is certain, one warning blast is not enough. The shofar must be blown many times to rouse us from our walking slumber and demand our full attention. Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim.
In God's presence, Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Dirashnucha, Himatzelanu.
Our God above, we seek you. Grant that we may find you.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Galech Chavod Malchutcha Aleinu.
Our God above, reveal to us the glory of your kingdom.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Karavenu Lavodatecha.
Our God above, draw us near to your service.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Tzaveh Itanu Virchotecha.
Our God above, grant us your blessing.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Tzaveh Itanu Yeshuotecha.
Our God above, help us with your saving acts.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Shit Shalom Beinenu.
Our God above, let peace reign among us.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Ten Shalom Ba'aretz.
Our God above, grant peace to the earth.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Ten Tzava Be'olamach.
Our God above, grant abundance to your world.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Karev Lanu Ketz HaGeula.
Our God above, hasten for us the day of redemption.
You may be seated. We ask God to treat us with compassion. I invite Judith Davidoff to continue and join me with this reading responsively. Judith, are you still here?
I am.
Okay, great. Mitratzeh b'rachamim u'mitpayes b'tachanunim. We pray for compassion and plead for grace. O God, our help, favor us and grant us peace.
Our Father, our Mother, be gracious to us and answer us. Even when we have little merit, treat us generously and with kindness, and be our help.
Uncertain of our ways, we look to you. Remember your compassion and your steadfast love, Eternal One, for they are everlasting.
For you alone we wait in hope. Extend to us your grace. Let not past errors be held against us. When our merits are few, let your compassion be quick to meet us.
Be gracious, God, be gracious to us. Our cup of sorrows is full. Look upon us with compassion. Remember how we are made. Remember that we are dust.
God, our help, As your nature is your glory, save us. Help us atone for our sins, that your will may prevail.
God's boxes. I have in my hands 2 boxes which God gave me to hold. God said, put all your sorrows in the black box and all your joys in the gold. Rabbi Greengrass?
I heeded God's words, and in the 2 boxes, both my joys and sorrows I stored.
But though the gold became heavier each day, the black was as light as before. With curiosity, I opened the black. I wanted to find out why, and I saw in the base of the box a hole, which my sorrows had fallen out by.
I showed the hole to God and mused, I wonder where my sorrows could be. God smiled a gentle smile and said, my child, they're all with me. I asked why God gave me the boxes, why the gold and the black with the hole.
My child, the gold is for you to count your blessings. The black is for you to let go. On this night of Slichot, may we let go of resentments. May we open our hearts to forgiveness, and may we return to God.
Oh, Cantor Nelson, you're muted.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn, and return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Venashuva, Venashuva, Hades, Hades, Yaminu Kekerim, Hades, Hades, Yaminu Kekerim.
And now, Rabbi Barris, are you ready? I can't see him.
Maybe his dog ran away with the chauffeur.
No, he's here.
Okay.
I know he's here.
Here we go. Tekiah Gedola.
Hello?
Oh, you froze for a moment.
I'm back.
Do it again. Tekiah Gedola.
Woo!
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to Andrea Levine, who helped coordinate our program. And of course, a very special thank you to Rabbi Richard Agler, who spoke so beautifully and so heartwarmingly directly from his soul. Again, if you'd like to hear more from him, you can go to his website, tragedytest.com. But we want to wish everybody a Shavua Tov. And we know this has been a very difficult year. And as Rosh Hashanah comes around next Friday, unfortunately, we will not all be together physically, but we will absolutely be together spiritually. So please plan on joining us. And also please check out the lobby, because after services, this new program called the lobby is really where we will have a chance to get together. And there are so many different opportunities, so many different conversations you can be a part of. And we really, really hope that you will be there to celebrate Rosh Hashanah with us. And then afterwards for us to gather in the spiritual lobby immediately after the service. We invite you to wish each other Shavua Tov, Shana
Shavua
Tova,
Tov.
and we will see you all very soon. Thanks to everybody for making tonight so special. Have a wonderful night.
Shana Tova.
Shavua Tov, everyone.
Shavua Tov.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you a lot.
Everybody.
Thank you, Jessica.